Welcome to another episode of The Wireless Way. I'm your host, Chris Whitaker. And as always, I'm grateful you're here to check this out. I'm even as grateful for Evan Kirstel. He's a B2B social media maven, a tech industry storyteller, and trusted partner to the global technology brands. With over 30 years in tech, he helps enterprises turn content to measurable engagement and long term growth. He hosts a Tech Impact, airing on Fox Business and Bloomberg, and is a leading voice across AI, enterprise IoT, UCaaS, cybersecurity, 5G, and the future of work, reaching millions of decision makers worldwide through TV, social media, podcast, and live streams. Evan, man, thanks for making time for us today. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh man, no, I know you're a busy guy, and I'm so great. I literally am grateful. I mean, I talk to a lot of folks, as I know you do for sure, and it's hard to schedule these things sometimes. Everybody's running and gunning, and here we are at the end of the year, 2025. So again, very grateful for your time. And there's always my first question. We all have our professional bios out there. What else can you tell us about who Evan is, and how did you get here?
Wow, how'd I get here?
How much
Long
time do we
story,
have?
but maybe we'll go back 35 years ago. I was a double E, but I started working as a sales engineer. I worked for the company that built the first voicemail, Dialogic, and then I went into paging. Remember pagers? Paging? You're a wireless old timer like
Yeah.
myself. So that's how I got into sort of wireless back in the day. You had a phone and then you had a pager, and you kind of juggled the two of them, and you had voicemail and then I kind of got into the mobile infrastructure and mobile technology industry, and it was there from 1G to 2G to 3G to 4G, and now we're 5G. And, 35 years later, we're still talking about some of the same topics and enterprise tech and IoT and wireless and, different technologies, different frequencies, different methodologies. But it's kind of what comes around goes around. Feels like deja vu in many ways back to the beginning of my tech career. Now we're kind of all in on AI and 6G is coming and all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm a geek. I'm at heart, particularly around wireless topics. So it's really great to have, chat with like-minded professionals, industry insiders like yourself.
I agree with that. I love to say that when like-minded people with aligned goals and similar interests get together, magic really happens. I mean, amazing things can happen. 30 years in technology. What are you most excited about to talk about? I mean, there's a lot to talk about. By the way, folks, check the show notes. I'll have links to his website, a lot of great content. Definitely learn more about Evan. If you want to learn more about technology, he's a great guy to follow. What are you excited about? What's really kind of making it work for you today?
I think for me, it's being a content creator. It's like the best of times. It's extraordinary. I mean, we see politics every day, but putting that aside, people like you and I, just sort of average Joes, have their own TV station, their own channel. They're broadcasting, they're creating content. I'm now using AI to create, impossible content, fun content.
A lot of
And
fun.
it's just an amazing time to be within the industry, using the technology, using the tools and the platforms and getting your voice out there and making a living in the process. I mean, what a golden era of tech at the moment. And there, we talk about the downsides and the risks and the dangers. And if you read the media headlines every day, you really get absorbed by those. But man, the upside is just so exciting.
With all the interviews that you conduct, a lot of the suppliers you work with, do you see a common trend? I mean, for the tech enthusiasts listening, what do people need to be paying attention to? What advice you have for folks that maybe are novices or still trying to just get their arms around this topic of technology and AI?
Well, I think the advice I have is be a practitioner. Don't read the headlines. Don't just scroll. I'm a big content consumer, always on YouTube. I'm always consuming content, your content, everyone's content. But that shouldn't be 99% of your time online. You need to be a creator. You need to add your voice, your value, your point of view. And whether it's in the written word, on the blog, or posting, whether it's a format like this, everyone should have a podcast in their own show, or whether it's a bigger platform like radio or even TV, have a voice, be a creator, don't just consume, create. I think that's the message. And I spent 20 years in corporate life. Had a good run, made money. It was very satisfying. But the last 10 years as an independent have been the most satisfying. So whatever arc you're on in your career, you got to think more entrepreneurial, out of the box. And even if you have a side hustle, the time is now to start. So make that your New Year's resolution, depending on when this will air.
So you're saying stop being a observer and be a participant. Be
Yeah,
on the
be a
field
creator,
playing.
not a consumer. I mean,
That's
be a,
right.
whatever your background or bioeducation, you have a point of view, you have certain insights, know-how, knowledge, particularly in, within the industry, let's say, which we're in, and get those out there. A lot of people shy away from that. They're not comfortable putting them out there. And that's fine. I hated video. Like pre-pandemic, I did everything I could to avoid video, looking at myself, seeing myself. But I think that's the new reality, the new normal. If you look at this generation, they're born digital, they're born on TikTok, they're born on YouTube. And
Oh
so
yeah.
us old guys need not get sidelined.
So do you find yourself interviewing folks more or being interviewed yourself? What's the
Oh, I have
ratio?
a daily podcast. So, God, I'm not that interesting. I tell people, like, whatever you put out there, you're not the most interesting person in the room. I'm sorry, Chris. Sorry.
I agree.
The way I manage to have a daily show is just by finding the most interesting and informative people I can find, and ask them deep questions and giving them a platform. And I learn a lot. That's how I learn, is through that style. It's a tremendous opportunity to learn from others, to connect, even if you're in sales and marketing, to sell or market through this channel. That's how I learned. So after probably 2,000 interviews over different channels, I feel like I have a whole new education just from talking with and asking questions of others.
Interesting. Is there any one takeaway you have from thousands of interviews? I mean, what I'm thinking, you were talking about being a podcaster and being a content creator. For me, this exchange, having you for 20, 30 minutes just to talk to and pick your brain is invaluable to me. That's how I learn too. That's how I try to collect information. Is there anything else for you personally? Is there any trends or observations you have with all the different people you've talked to over time that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think the ability to learn, and, I've been out of school for 35 years. Learning is as important now as it ever has been or will be. Using the AI tools that are out there to learn, to satisfy your curiosity, to always be learning through whatever channel, whether it's books, whether it's audiobooks or podcasts or YouTube shows. So having a curiosity and a voracious appetite for learning and asking questions, I think that's what is enabling folks to succeed in this new economy. It's not enough to have your qualifications from 20 years ago and your certificates. Even if you're an engineer, it's not enough these days. So find that mode of learning that works for you and embrace it. You got to do it. Otherwise, in this AI age, you're really going to fall behind, because knowledge is no longer enough. It used to be knowing a lot of stuff got ahead, right? If you knew a lot of stuff, you were different from the next person.
Well,
Anyone has access at their fingertips to everything now. So that knowledge is no longer
yeah,
enough.
information
It's
you have to
what's
know is more than your brain almost can hold, it seems like, right? I mean, there is a lot to know. In my day job, we do these things called AI master classes where we take these technology architects on this journey of how to position and sell, do these AI assessments, understanding where the end user, where are they on their AI journey. You have any thoughts on sharing advice or observations around where are we with AI? Is this something to be scared of? Is this something to embrace? So, any other thoughts on AI in business and where you're seeing it to make a
Yeah,
difference?
no, it's a huge multiplier effect. I mean, just take a little example of this podcast. AI can format that into a video for 5 different channels. It can find the interesting clips and talking points and post that on social channels. It can edit and record the audio from the video and publish it on, 20 different podcast channels. It can create a really interesting blog based on the discussion and talking points, and on and on. So all of a sudden, one discussion turns into 20 pieces of content. And that's just one little example. So every SaaS app that you try now, every iPhone app is going to have AI infused and empowering it in ways that are really new and novel. So it's giving us all these superpowers. And whether you're a field technician out, repairing a site, or whether you're making content, you're going to have these superpowers, but they're not always obvious. You have to try and discover them and leverage them in new and different ways, and then share that with your colleagues or collaborators. Collaboration is more important than ever. Learning, as I said, is more important than ever. And just being open to doing things differently, more important than ever. I suspect in a couple of years, my avatar is going to have a podcast with your avatar, your digital twin, and it will have a great podcast without ever even having to show up. So that's just an example how everything is changing.
Of your last dozen or so interviews and contents you created, do you have a favorite? I mean, do you have like a favorite go-to topic that you just really prefer over anything else?
Yeah, I love big thinkers. I love people making big impacts. I had the head of IT and CIO for TCS, who had the world's largest internally, something like 600,000 employees. If you can imagine that,
Mm.
not just techies and developers, but all employees, like building and low code and no code, building apps and trying them out and learning. So that was really interesting. But I love people really making impact in a meaningful way, doing things that no one's done before. In the UK and Ireland, you can actually get, unlike here in the US, most places, you can get a coffee delivered to your porch anywhere in Ireland right now via drone. And so, there are people changing the way we work and live and experience reality in medicine and healthcare. Just so many breakthroughs happening quietly behind the scenes. They don't make the headlines of the Wall Street Journal, but new cancer drugs being developed, new novel therapeutics, digital health apps. I mean, there's like a quiet revolution happening beyond all the hype about LLMs and data centers and the cool stuff. There's a quiet revolution happening in the background that's going to make our lives much better.
Yeah, I think it's never been a better time to be alive in terms of technology, all the things you mentioned, working in technology. I mean, it makes me cringe sometimes when I go to an event, I'm introduced as a wireless expert because what's the saying? The more you learn about something, the more you realize what you don't know. I've been diving into your knowledge around wireless technology and 6G. Was talking with an engineer from NVIDIA recently, a month or so ago, and he was telling me they're actively working on all the different protocols for 6G, sub 10 milliseconds latency, more throughput, AI at the edge. I mean, all kind of cool things going on. He said something I thought was pretty interesting, and I happen to agree. It's not going to be that much longer, maybe 5 to 10 years, where that last mile will be wireless. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an amazing revolution. Family has a cabin up in New Hampshire, and they have a 5G fixed wireless, way cheaper, way more performant than cable, way better customer experience. I mean, I look at my, little device here. It's got 3 eSIMs. I can use it as a hotspot. I get a gig up and a gig down. It binds, multiple carriers together. I could travel around the world, and I have a studio in my pocket. So for as much, abuse as 5G gets for not delivering on this promise of, telesurgery and remote applications that maybe it overpromised on, it's amazing to see, once you have perspective of where we were, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, and where we are now with devices, with speeds and uplinks and downlinks with satellite. The fact that I can take this or my Apple Watch out in the wilderness, or God forbid, in an accident, and get a service or emergency services in the middle of nowhere up in New Hampshire. I mean, these are just amazing breakthroughs, the rise of Starlink, and not just, broadband satellite, but mobile satellite for messaging, voice, video, anywhere in the world. I mean, these are incredible breakthroughs. They've kind of just snuck up on us, right? If you would have told me 5 years ago we'd have satellite broadband, satellite mobile messaging over satellite, I would have said, no, it'll never work. The physics, won't happen. We always overestimate what technology can deliver on a certain time horizon, but we underestimate what it can do over the years, over the decades. And particularly when it comes to wireless, the best is really yet to come.
Yeah, it reminds me of a friend of mine, Greg Plum. He did a TED talk on what would George Jetson think of where we are today. His thesis was that in the cartoon, The Jetsons, George Jetson was born around this time. We meet George Jetson like in his early 30s, so we're talking, 30 years from now or so. And we're not too far off. He said, I don't think George Jetson would be too disappointed. We're on track. I mean, minus living in an apartment 9 miles above the earth, but everything else, 3D printers,
The
robotics.
flying, that's been the big disappointment. Although go to China, I think they're already having flying cars. They certainly have drones everywhere.
That's right.
Every city you can get
It's
your
good.
fast
Yeah, I'm
food
still wondering
delivered
how we're
by
gonna,
drone.
yeah, keep them from wrecking or crashing. Gosh, well, Evan, I know we kind of just scratched the surface on so many topics. And again, if you're listening, check the show notes. There's so much more to learn from Evan. But is there anything else we haven't discussed, Evan, you want to share with us? Any kind of last words or nuggets you can leave us with?
Yeah, I always go to CES every year, and I'll be there from January 3rd in Las Vegas, of course. And it's just a great showcase of the new, the wacky, the crazy, the cool, and a lot of B2B applications. It's not just a gadget show anymore. There's a real lot of cool technologies that are kind of bubbling up under the surface that I'm really keen to check out, including a lot of IoT technologies and devices and silicon that's being developed because these things take years to develop, and really excited to check out the smart home and the Internet of Things as it really begins to mature. So I'll see you there. Hopefully anyone listening, watching can meet me at CES.
Are you going to have a presence, a booth, or a recording studio set up?
No, just this thing with the gigabyte up and down. You get fantastic coverage, and with a mic, a ring light, and a tripod, you're a studio, right?
That's
Who
right.
needs a booth, or who needs a podcasting office or something? It'll be an amazing time to cover and explore the event.
So for those of you, if you're watching this on YouTube, I mean, you'll see the background behind you, Evan. Is there virtual or are those real plants?
Those are real plants inside, of course. I'm in Boston, so everything, will die outside, but we keep it toasty inside.
Are you got a green thumb or is that someone else's work?
My wife does the heavy lifting as far. I manage to keep them alive by watering. That's
There
nothing
you
fancy.
go. You play your part. You help. That's awesome. They look just very cool to see that. That's a very creative way to have a backdrop there that's not virtual. I know you do your fair share of virtual backgrounds. So I love your videos using AI to go back in time to
Yeah, check it
different.
out. Sora is one of the top 5 apps now in the App Store. And then people are like, well, I don't want to give my voice and my likeness. But if you ever had ambitions to be a TV star or a movie star, you can get in there, you can create pretty much anything, So for good and bad, we call it deep fakes, but there's a positive, fun, uplifting, educational side to that. And I think people who embrace it in a positive way are going to have fun and do some good work.
As you were describing the situation, you're right. Some people say that they're like, well, I don't like the idea of Big Brother watching me. I'm like, man, we're so far past that. I mean, there's cameras everywhere doing facial recognition. That ship is sailed a long time ago. But I came across a company called Verify Now. I don't know if you've heard of them, out of California, and his whole shtick is live personality, verification. And he was telling me how, even major universities, people are applying for scholarships. Bots are applying for scholarships and getting them. And before the university figure out it's not a real person, tens of thousands of dollars have been sent to some account somewhere. But he's talking about how now, a lot of these universities and credit card companies and high dollar, if you're like buying $100,000 Rolex online, you have to submit your government issued ID. You have to take a live picture and, turn your head. And there's all these softwares, just making sure you're not a bot. You're not some AI generated image. And even with your voice, it is able to detect if it's AI generated or if it's live. How long before AI learns to beat that system? Who knows?
Yeah, the bad guys will have AI.
I
There's a
would
lot
bet
of
against
nefarious
AI.
happening there, but we try to keep positive and use it for good. And I think over time, the tools, the technologies, the platforms will mature. I mean, when the internet first came on, as you know, people were reluctant to put a credit card online. Look at us now. So, things will evolve and change for the better, I hope.
No, you're right. Every technology man's ever made could be used for good or could be used for evil. And it's really up to us as a society to embrace that positive. All these tools we're discussing really are making our lives better. It's to make us more efficient, more effective. But yeah, back to your comment earlier. If you're resisting, if you're not trying to learn, you're going to get left behind. And what's the saying? It's not AI won't take your job. Someone that knows how to use AI will take your job. Well, Evan, it's been great. Thanks for this time together, man. Enjoy your holidays. Maybe we can get together next year and get your download, or I could share your. I'm sure you have a lot of interviews while you're out there in Vegas. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. And there you go, folks. Another episode of The Wireless Way. And as always, if you heard anything that kind of hit a nerve with you or something you thought a colleague might be interested in, please share this episode with them. And as always, you can also check thewirelessway.net, hit the contact us button for any input or feedback. Love to hear from you. And with that being said, we'll see you next time on The Wireless Way.